Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Hometown Heroes. If you've followed the town of Ansonia, you're no stranger to their rich and long tradition of football, winning several state titles. However, they've also been successful in other sports, particularly basketball. And in the early 90s, there were a group of men who helped build that team into a championship team in 1995. Today, we have three of those individuals who had a big part in this team's success. We have Coach Tom McQueeny, Captain Lenny Svelnys, and Coach Ed Strumello. And gentlemen, welcome to the show. I'm glad to have you here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
You know, guys, it's really amazing to think that Ansonia could win a championship in anything but football. That's basically what they've been known for as long as I can remember, for as long as I've been alive. That's all I've heard about. Sometimes basketball kind of takes a back seat because the football team is so successful. Explain to me, each of you, how you guys were able to get people to notice Ansonia basketball and give it some recognition.
You want to start with me?
Sure.
First thing I did when I came to Ansonia, and I knew it was rich in tradition in football, is I talked to the football coach. And
Right.
I told him he might have some kids that I can use on the basketball team, and I might have some kids that didn't go out for football on my basketball team. And we should work together and be as successful as we can. And I did that, and believe me, it worked.
Right.
So
Now, did you ever think like they were competing against each other, the football and basketball team? Because, you know, like nothing else, I mean, you know, if you're a basketball player, your focus is on basketball. There are football players who play basketball, but in a town that's always known for football, you feel like their first love is always going to be football. Was it difficult at first to get them to transition from football to basketball?
yes, but I always took a back seat being the basketball coach, and football did their thing because I could see right from the beginning that, you know, the people in town were in love with their football program.
Right.
So, and plus Boots Jarvis was then the athletic director and the football coach when I started. So,
And Boots had coached 3 sports there as well, probably 4 if I remember correctly.
Right.
Right.
But his favorite was
Right.
football. But he was people don't probably realize he was a great baseball player too.
Right.
And but you're right. He coached the 3 sports, no, it was a pretty easy transition for me.
Right. Now, Ed, I mean, how do you look at it? I mean, you're starting the season. Usually Ansonia's in the playoffs. I mean, that's one thing I wanted to ask you both, too. Did you guys have to wait another week to hold practice because of the playoff game? Did you hold practice that week with the players you had? I mean, was it tough getting these guys ready to get into basketball mode?
Well, that was always very difficult, especially when they won the championship. And that, because, again, you had to be, as an educator and a coach, you had to understand that they were tired, these kids.
Right.
And we also wanted to give them a little break from the football. But most of the guys would come as soon as they could. There were very few that would, as we would say, milk it for an extra couple days. They were there. But we practiced from the beginning.
Right. So
As many
that
kids,
Monday after Thanksgiving, you guys were there.
Many of the guys we had. But then again, during that era too, we started to develop some of the key players who were not football players. Lenny in particular.
Right.
Robert Sanders, I had the year
Good
before
player.
that.
Yeah.
There were a few players like that who were basketball, maybe baseball, but we had a few key players who were just basketball players.
Right. Now, Lenny, being a basketball player, you didn't play football, if I'm correct, right?
No, it didn't.
Right. I mean, was it difficult for you because at the same time, like I said, I mean, I'm sure these players want to win, but, to them, if they won a championship in football, I'm sure that was enough for them. That's what they wanted. Was it difficult for you as a basketball player trying to get them motivated with you to try to be successful?
Yeah, no, motivation wasn't a problem. I think it was just, specifically in my senior year, they had just won the states in football. So,
Right.
And you can ask Steve and those guys. I mean, they loved playing basketball.
Right.
So, for me, it was really the toughest part was getting everybody to gel together in the beginning of the season.
Right.
And we dropped our first two out of three games, and we only lost by 1 point each, but I don't think we had gelled yet. Art Denby came in. I never played with Art before, but Carl Jankevich, the JV coach at the time, went to Art and said, "Hey, you should come out for this team."
Right.
And he ended up becoming the starting point guard. So
Very good defender.
Yeah, fantastic defender. And so it was kind of and I'm coming off 8 games. I only played 8 games the previous season. I was coming back from a knee surgery, so getting back into and the other thing too, which was a big deal for the second year in a row. Our power forward, who was Steve at the time,
Right.
got moved to the 2 spot because we were just pouring in with height, and we did the same thing with Jody Sanders. Jody was he was our power forward, and also had to make that transition to the 2 spot. So
Right.
we were just overflowing with talent, and we just kind of had to figure it out, and then we ended up figuring it out
Right.
for the rest of the season. So
Cool. We will get back to that more, but I want to kind of go over how the journey began for all 3 of you. And Coach McQueeny, I'll start with you. When did you first take over as head coach of Ansonia?
1964-65 season, and Jack Hunt was my first captain.
Wow.
And we had a very, very good team, but I was very raw at the time.
Right.
And we should have done quite a bit better. Jim Del Volpe played on that team.
Oh, okay.
Steve Sokol, Brian Horgan, Jack Hunt, Donnie Davis. We had a really good squad, and I think our first game we went up to Norwich Free Academy, and we played them and we beat them up there. And
Right.
Howie Dickerman was playing for them, the present coach of Central Connecticut State,
Right.
and an assistant at UConn for
Right.
many years. And it was good. That's where I started, and that's how we started. And all we did after that was work hard as coaches. I mean, the amount of times that we went and saw other coaches. Freddie Barracat was a pretty good friend of mine. He was at Fairfield, and Joe Van Sizen at Yale, and Bert Kahn at Quinnipiac,
Right.
and all these guys. Then we went to clinics all the time, and I mean, my whole staff went. Myself, Eddie, and Stan Biga, and we all went to clinic. And then later on, it was myself, Eddie, and Marvin Franks, and that's how it all started for me.
Right.
And thank God I had my assistants with me. They were great.
Right. Now let me ask you this. What was it like to coach back then during that time? Because, I'm pretty sure back then, nobody tried to micromanage, nobody tried to interfere or anything like that. Was it easier, would you say, coaching back in the 60s as, opposed to the 90s? We'll compare the two.
I would say it's much easier.
Yeah.
We did not have all the parental involvement that they have today, and I don't know if it's good or it's bad, but I know coaches can't last. I mean, I went 35 years or so, and I wasn't burnt out or anything. I still love coaching. Matter of fact, after I retired, I coached the golf team at the University of New Haven for 5 years. So I still had a lot left in the tank, and I don't think that would have happened if the parents were continuing to nip at the coach.
Right.
Yeah, I want to jump in on and go along with Tom on that. I think the other thing that made it easier for us was we didn't have the pressure of the AAU that is now placed upon kids.
Right.
Back then there was some AAU, but very limited amount of AAU, and that was our kids, wanted to play 3 sports. And as an educator for 38 years, I've been a real opponent of specialization.
Right.
And I think that's what's done way too much in high school sports now. Right. Every sport. And I think, because we look at the baseball this season, I think that's why there's so much arm trouble with baseball, because they're not taking seasons off to rest that particular muscle.
That's a great point.
And they just,
Tom and I discussed that off air too, about what you just brought up, and I really believe, kids should be encouraged to play other sports. You focus on one, that's how you get hurt, I think. You got to play multiple ones.
I think if you look, one last point on this, I think if you look at the pros, by and large, any sport, were multi-sport athletes.
Yeah.
Alex Rodriguez, I believe, was a 3-sport All-Stater.
Yep.
And there's many other guys like that. Even the football players, the basketball players, they're all played many. And now the specialization is just killing.
Yeah, and there could be a thing of too much basketball, too much baseball.
Absolutely.
Now, Lenny, how did your journey begin?
I was 6, 7 years old, and my dad, gave me a basketball, and we'd go visit friends' houses, and they would have a, hoop in the driveway. And I remember him paying attention to, how I was shooting, and even at a young age, I was able to have a nice little touch. And then, immediately, I loved playing, and ended up going through the junior biddy, getting coached by Coach Cody and Sean Morris's father, Mr. Morris. Going into senior biddy, being coached by Sam Smith. Was made the all-star team under Coach Coughlin, who was Steve's dad, and just he was, as far as a coach and getting kids ready for basketball, he was ahead of his time. My mom would say that when we played against his teams, they looked like the Globetrotters out there. The running plays and passing was unbelievable, and that's how one of the reasons why Steve became such a good player. And then and as far as that, I gotta bring this story up because he's gonna talk to Mr. Gentile. So there was a rumor going around Prendergast that I may be going to Emmett O'Brien. A buddy of mine said, hey, Randy Sanders, Kevin Chopak, those guys are going over there, and we could potentially be starters for 4 years. And so I took the test, and that was really it. So Mr. Gentile, who was the vice principal at the time, caught wind of it and pulled me out of class one day, and I'm sitting in the in-school suspension room, and he goes, I have a visitor for you, and in comes the freshman coach at the time, Carl Jankevich, and he's in his security guard gear there for the prison, I believe. He's working in the prison. So. And just at the time, I think I'm 6 feet tall or something like that, and I weigh 100 pounds. He comes in, he's just a very imposing figure, and but just came in and said, he's like, how you doing? I'm the freshman coach, and you're not going to Emmett. and then he goes, I'll tell you why. He goes, they don't have the program that we have over here in Ansonia, and he goes, I promise you. He goes, I know you're a good kid. He goes, I know that you love basketball and that's all you're playing. He goes, you're going to be a perfect fit for that program. And nobody from Emmett O'Brien came to see me. So, I said, okay, So, and that setup by Mr. Gentile is his credit to the basketball championship in '95.
Wow, well, be sure to thank him.
Absolutely.
He brings it up many times to us.
And we're going to discuss more of this and other stuff, how this big championship team came about, when we come back. I'm Mike Kenichi for Hometown Heroes, and we'll be back after this.
Morning, Gary. We are GetSchooled.com. You want a college education, don't you?
You know you do.
That's why we're here. We're free and here to guide you through every step of the way, starting with attendance. Gary, financial aid forms. Picking a college, man. You and us. We go together like tacos and Tuesday.
And I love tacos. Go to getschool.com.
And we are back. I'm Mike Kenichi for Hometown Heroes. We're reminiscing today with longtime Ansonia basketball coach Tom McQueeny, his former player Lenny Svelnys, and longtime Ansonia girls coach as well as boys Ed Strumello. Coach McQueeny, I want to start with you on this. You coached 35 years, as you mentioned. I mean, you had to have a lot of good teams over the years. Give me, was there one team that stood out, not counting the championship team, was there one team that stood out in those 35 years to you? Or better yet, was there a team that you went into the season and said, I don't think we're going to be too good, and they surprised you?
Yes, I've had teams in both ways. I think maybe one of the best teams I had was the first year I coached.
Yeah.
I really believe that. And I also had some great teams in the Willie McFarland era. And that's in 69, 70, 71, 72. And we were very good then, too. And then I've had some teams that we didn't expect that we would do very much with, but as it turned out, the kids played hard and we won games and got in the tournament and things like that. So all of that happened.
Now let me ask you as a coach, and I'll ask you this as well. You could both answer this. What is the goal when you're coach? I mean, you want to make the tournament, but let me ask you this. Is every year the goal to win a championship, or are there some years where you're like, we want to get in the tournament? If we did that, we had a good, successful season. How did you go into every season?
The goal, I could tell pretty much who had what in our league and what we had. And yes, I might make the goal if we were a little weaker, I might make the goal getting into the tournament. Then if I saw that we had a pretty good club, then I would make the goal of we got to try and win the NVL championship or win a state championship. So that's the way I did it. Teams differed as to skill levels and how big they were and things like that. It was pretty evident with Lenny's team that we had to go for it all.
Right. Now, Ed, it's awesome to think that you coach both the girls and boys, but at the same time, transitioning like that could be difficult as well. Now, you had coached with Coach McQueeny for about 10 years before you became the girls coach, correct?
Right.
Now, your first year as a girls coach, was this your first time ever coaching girls in any capacity?
Yes.
Was it difficult at first? You coached there 8 years.
Well, I was lucky in that it was a good team that I inherited at that time. So that helped. But I laughed because the very first occurrence with the girls was the JVs, because my assistant was late, so I was there because of her job requirements. And I'm there and I'm saying to myself, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Because at the JV level was way lower.
Right.
At the girls at that particular time. When the varsity came, then I felt a little bit better because the varsity, I had seen them in the summer, so they had some talent. But that was a shock for me. But I will say, and Tom could verify that, and even my players, I did everything that I did with the boys, practice-wise, I did with the girls. I never did different things and said that these were girls and they should be treated differently. Same drills, same offenses.
So the game plan was the same thing.
Everything was the same. And to follow up with the question on Tom, I used to look at it a little bit different for goals. Tom used to set goals like that. I was more, I wanted to win every game I played, every single time. But you got to be realistic. That's not going to happen. But I went into games, because we were talking about that just We were out the other night, Tom and I, and we were just talking about how some people are talking, well, they don't have an opportunity. Sacred Heart and Waterbury's got everybody coming back and teams. Well, we don't have a chance to win it all. We never went into a game against any opponent with that attitude. We knew in our mind realistically that we had to do everything perfect in some instances to win a game. But we never went in and said, well, there's no way we could beat them. Let's just hold the ball and keep it close.
Right.
We tried to win games. And at times when you did that, there's times where you would get waxed because the team was that much better than you, and you played into their strengths.
Right.
And, but we went into, our mindset was always that we were going to try to win every single game we played. We never have.
Now, when you're winning, it's a lot of fun, as everyone knows. But there are times when you have a bad team, and you kind of could tell in the beginning if you're going to have a good team or not. Is it hard to stay motivated knowing you don't have a particular good team and that there are going to be games you're going to get blown out, and you could see it from like maybe the first 5 minutes? How do you stay focused, and did it become frustrating for you too at all?
It's hard. I mean, I remember when I switched from the girls to the boys, the head coach, I was 0-9.
Right.
I mean, that was very difficult, keeping the kids motivated and trying to keep winning. But you did it. You know, you were positive and
did you still enjoy coming to practice every day?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're basketball junkies. I hate to say that, but
Absolutely.
I mean, we loved it. And as Tom said, we went everywhere to watch. And he mentioned some of the ones. And I remember a thing Tom said to me that stuck for years and years. One of the first clinics that we went together, because I went to my own a couple times, but the first one that we went together, I remember him saying, watch some of these people. And you were having big-time coaches up there giving hints and telling you stuff there, and people questioning these people. Right. I mean, John Wooden I saw, Chuck Daly, I mean, you could go on and on, Denny Crum, all of the great coaches were there. And then there would be people, coaches, who knows what their records were questioning what these guys were saying. And Tom was always like that. We learned, even if it's one thing, one little thing, it was worth it. And we used to take copious notes. I mean, and we sat up front. We didn't sit in the back. We sat up front to make sure that we could get everything we could from people. And you use it. And sometimes it was a terminology that you couldn't get kids dropping weak side. And the coach would say it in a different way. And you would go, oh, my God, why didn't I think of saying it that particular way? And we would just add it in, and it worked sometimes.
Right.
But you got to learn the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, Lenny, you start your freshman year of high school. It's hard to say at that age. You're still a kid, basically. You don't really know what goals you want for yourself other than the fact that you want to be on the court. What kind of goals did you set for yourself, though, that freshman year of high school? I mean, I remember, if I remember correctly, that was a pretty good freshman team as well.
Yeah, it's funny because we were 14-7 with that team. And the only two guys that were on the team my senior year, it came down to me and Greg. You know, other guys played other sports, or the talent pool became so rich that, you know, some guys just didn't make the cut. So that freshman team, it was definitely the starting point. And from what I saw, it was the beginning of. I remember 8th grade was like, you know, just all scrimmage and stuff like that. By the time I got there for the practices and the program, Coach Inkevich ran it like the JVs and the varsities. So the varsity squad. So it was how to maximize how much they can get out of you. So the training started, the suicide run started. And for me, the goal was try to block every shot I can. And, you know, now I went from, you know, being 6 feet tall to 6'4", still a beanpole, still super skinny. But I had an affinity for blocking shots. And, you know, one game we played against Derby, Coach Inkevich kept a tally on how many I had. Now their team wasn't that
We were
good,
bad,
and we
yeah.
didn't have to try to run up the score. The score just kind of ran up on its own. But he counted how many blocks I had, and I had 21 blocks.
And I'm sure that as much as you probably love to score, it feels good to block a shot. I'm sure you loved blocking shots maybe more than scoring. Am I correct?
Well, yeah, because you were taking you were taking confidence away from the other player, and also potentially 2 points. So, and I remember getting up to the JV level, and Coach Strumello going, he's like, I don't want to see you swatting the ball out of bounds. He's like, tip it to yourself, tip it to a teammate,
Right.
keep the ball in play, because you're literally giving them the ball back. And it was in some cases it was an ego thing, because you wanted to make them feel pretty bad, like, wow, it's so and I think the best kind of shot blocking situations I had was when you were able to pin it up against the backboard, and
Yeah.
that was just completely just devastating the other team. So.
And a great big guy also has to be, someone who's aggressive too. You can't just go out there, block shots. You got to be aggressive, or else it doesn't matter how big you are. You're going to be dominated by the defender or the opponent. Did you have trouble with that in the beginning? Were you not as aggressive?
No, and the aggression and aggressiveness took time to
Right.
to develop. So, I wasn't the strongest guy out on the court, and it's safe to say I was more of a finesse player than somebody who was super aggressive. So,
Right.
I didn't figure out. These two coaches both, would tell me, you have to play with strong hands.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what that meant really until we got to the tournament, and I went from averaging 5 or 6 rebounds a game my senior season to averaging 15 in the tournament.
Right.
I had my first against North Haven I had 20 rebounds. Against Kennedy, I believe I had 16. Against Basket, I had 12. In the championship game, I had 19. And that all came down to figuring out how to play with strong hands and grabbing the rebounds and creating, other opportunities for you. So.
Right. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how Coach McQueeny steps aside, Coach Strumello comes in, and then Coach McQueeny comes back. I'm Mike Kenichi for Hometown Heroes. We'll be back after this.
You got your personal references, high school diploma or equivalent?
Skip the drama. Get your diploma.
It's right there.
Find free adult education classes at finishyourdiploma.org.
And we are back. So guys, basically more for you two. The 1989 season comes to a close. You decide to step down as head coach. Let me ask you this. When you stepped down, did you recommend Ed to take over for you? Did you talk to him about it? Like, how did that all become about?
Well, I knew, not really, because but I knew Ed may be interested.
Right.
But he was very successful on his own end with the girls program, and I didn't know which way he wanted to go. But I thought him being with me the first 10 years, I said, I think Eddie's got a hankering to try the boys. And he did. And I would support him 150%.
Now let me ask you this. Was it difficult for you to walk away? You'd done it for, like I said, 25 years at that point. I mean,
Yes, it
you
was.
mentioned before that you never got tired of doing it. So
Right.
to leave, and hand it over to someone, was that difficult? Like, did you have trouble that first season away from the game?
Absolutely. I missed it
Right.
a lot. And but I was always supportive of Ed and the team and whatever they wanted, and if they needed somebody to scout or whatever had to happen would happen. But I did miss it. I missed the coaching part of it.
Right. Now, Ed, was it difficult for you? You had built that girls program. If I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, in the 8 years, I think you guys made the tournament at least 6 times. Am I correct?
Every year.
Every year. So
Yeah,
every year.
yeah.
So, you were building a winner there. I mean, if you make the tournament every year, to me, you're having a good season. It's a program, because that's the most important thing. You want it to be a program. So was it difficult? Did you have to think about it before you applied?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
it was a hard decision, without a doubt. Because as you had said, I built the program, and and I want to give credit to my predecessor, to McGretha Chambers. When she first started, they won 2 state titles.
Yeah.
But then she went into a lull of a period where they didn't win very many games. And so then I came in, and then we had success. We won 2 league titles. We were in the semifinals a couple of times. And so I had this going, and I had a good squad coming back. I had 3 6-foot girls, which was big for back then. But there was always that thought, can you do it at the boys level? I mean, that was my thinking. Can I do it at the boys level? And I thought about it, and then I decided to go for it.
And if you didn't take it at that point, you were never going to do it. Like
probably not.
The time was
now. Probably not.
It.
At my point in my life, probably not. And so went in. Like I said, that first year that was 0-9. But then I could see the growth. The freshman team coming up. I could see kids getting better. I mean, we upset 2 good teams right in a row after that 0-9. We beat Wilby and we beat Sacred Heart, 2 good programs. So I could see that there was going to be a future there. And then as it went along, we got bigger and bigger and better. I mean, that first year, I go to play Kennedy. And Kennedy had Jerome Malloy, who went up played from UMass with Calipari when he was the coach, when they were like number 1 or number 2 when UMass was there.
Yeah.
He was a 6'4" point guard. My biggest player at the time was 6'2" Duncan Delavope.
Yeah.
He was my center at the time. So, we're talking about trying to win games. We're saying, okay, we got to pass the ball. We got to make sure.
You got to deal with all the penalties.
There was just great talent there. But then it got better. And going back to the good question you asked about Lenny about being aggressive, I had to convince them. We were huge. I mean, the junior year, we had 6'3", 6'3" guards, and we had Lenny at 6'7", we had Mrazek at 6'8". And we had Steven 6'5", wouldn't even play. We had Frolich 6'5", didn't even. And we had players that didn't play because Timmy Lynch and Jody Sanders. But we were big, but we weren't playing big. I used to remember telling these guys, we're big, but we're not playing big. So I would tell them, jam every time. I don't care if you miss. Go for the jam because we have to establish that we're going to be a big team that's going to play big, because you could say you're big, but you don't play big.
Exactly.
And that was a tough sell, but the guys bought it, and I was persistent. I could be stubborn.
Right. Now, was it hard at first replacing a legend like Tom and getting these players to buy into your system, or did you have the respect right away?
I thought there was still some of them that, because of older brothers or sisters that probably remembered. And even during the time that I was with the girls, we were very close. I would scout for him if he needed it. He would scout for me if I needed it. And the kids would see that the girls were running pretty much the same thing as the boys were running. Maybe terminology a little bit different, but we basically ran a lot of the same stuff. So that helped. It was tough the first year.
Right.
But then I think the second year became much easier because we did well the second half of the year. After that 0-8 start, we won 5 of the last ones there. So that helped, and then we had players coming back. So yeah, it was a little, but I didn't feel it was that much because I taught in Ansonia for years. I had these kids. They knew me.
And you're both Ansonia High graduates, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not me.
Not him.
Oh, no.
No,
Well,
I went
see,
to Fairfield Prep.
that's something I never knew. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Was it hard to, especially like when you became the girls' coach, was it difficult that you two weren't coaching together anymore? You built kind of like a good relationship with each other. You trusted him, he trusted you. So was it difficult knowing that you didn't have Tom and you didn't have Ed anymore? Or,
Well, I think we always had each other. I think, don't you think, Tom?
I think so. Yeah, we were the best of friends, and
Yeah.
you know, if I might have him come in and check the practice out and say, listen, let me see what you see, and he was, and he'd tell me after, and I'd go in and watch his girls practice, and he says, okay, tell me what you see, and he maybe mentioned individual players and stuff, and we see stuff that other people don't see. And I'm going to tell you one thing: we passed the ball, both programs, and we worked on passing. And one of the things that I think is overlooked today is passing the basketball.
Right.
And you have to make a commitment and to put drills in practice and practice it. And we did it. I mean, I can't remember running like a layup drill with just two lines, person dribbling in, taking a layup. We always ran it with three lines. You had to pass, bounce passes,
Right.
this and that, on the run and all that kind of thing. And we ran a lot of full court stuff, 3-on-2, 2-on-1, three-man weave, always on the run, because we knew we're playing up in Waterbury, we're playing against those kids, and you better be able to pass the ball, and you better be able, or you're going to get killed. So
Right.
we ran drills that would go into a game when we had to play it faster or something like that. And I thought we did a pretty good job with that. And I know he did the same thing, and it works. That stuff works,
Right.
believe it or not.
We were just talking. There was one drill that we used, and I think Lenny will remember because he's pretty good at that. We used to run Hubie Brown drill.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's a great basketball mind right
well,
Oh,
he
one of
he
the
was.
best.
I tell you, one of the
Yeah.
best. We had a lot of stuff for him. One of the best, Hubie Brown, and another, and this is one of my favorite stories. Was the Chuck Daly story. I had seen Chuck Daly when he was at Penn, and then later on he was, I forget where he was, but before he became the when he won with the Pistons. But we were at a clinic, and we had listened to one of his lectures. Then we go out to eat lunch, for supper, and we're sitting in the hotel motel, and we're doing that. And Chuck Daly comes in, sees us, he waves at us, we wave at him. He comes over and he says, "Do you mind if I join you? Do you mind?" It was like, sure.
Right.
So he sat with us, and we talked basketball, for an hour with Chuck Daly. Chuck Daly goes on to the Dream Team.
Yeah.
We sat with him and we talked basketball with him casually, and you learn things like
we picked
that.
up the full court man-to-man press, the 1-4.
That's right.
Remember
From
that?
him, I got it in
From
New
him,
Haven.
absolutely.
In New York City.
We got it from Chuck Daly.
Yeah.
I also think, too, you talk about Chuck Daly, the times that, guys like Chuck Daly, Pat Riley, Casey Jones, all those guys that coached back then, the basketball was better back then because they played the game, they coached it the way it should be played. I think today the NBA is not coached right, not the way I remember seeing it. And those guys were old school basketball guys who, ran it right, did it the right way. I mean,
I'm up at Kutcher's in the mountains at a clinic, and Dean Smith was the lead speaker from North Carolina. And we went to play golf this particular day after the lectures, and we went out to play some golf. And we're standing there. We only got 3 guys with us, and along comes a guy. He says, "Do you mind if I join you and play with you guys?" And the guy was Larry Brown.
wow.
And so we were going around, and he was terrific. And he had just left the Carolina team in the ABA, and he was going to become an assistant to Dean Smith at North Carolina.
Yeah.
So we had it in with him too. You know what I mean?
Right. I think that's probably the best part about what you guys did is you got to meet so many different people, kind of pick their brain, things like that. And I mean, that's just as good as being out there every day coaching, is going to those clinics, going to those conferences.
Absolutely.
Now, Lenny,
And that would get brought up in the practices. I remember to this day. I mean, Coach Strumello, out. It was probably my sophomore or my junior year, and he goes, John Wooden would be in the locker room, and he's saying this to all of us, and he would actually have lessons on how to put your socks on. And like those little things, those little details, and then, I mean, you know, coming up in 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, you know, the confidence that these guys had and the knowledge was there, and the tide was definitely turning for the program.
And Lenny,
sure.
I would probably, I don't want to speak for you, but I would guess that when you came up and you're playing with Strumello for 2 years, then you play with Coach McQueeny, you probably learned so much that you thought you knew so much about the game, and you really didn't know as much as you thought until you started playing for these guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's 100% correct. You know, when we were talking about the drills and the practices, I mean, very little scrimmage, mostly drills. Get your passes tight. You know, get the fast breaks, you know, right. And it was just 2 hours. And I think if you had an extra hour to have with us to run more drills, you know, it would have been there. But I think we only had 2 hours of practice, and then unfortunately you gotta go home.
Do you think they helped you mature as a player and as a person as well? I mean, do you think you were immature before you got there as far as a player went?
I mean, I was a kid, so yeah.
Right.
But the things that these two you know, had taught me, and you know, basketball is just being like a metaphor for life. The things that you take from the game, and you know, like I run my own business today, and I wouldn't be able to do that if I, you know, don't put in, you know, the hard work and the determination. You have to be aggressive, and you have to. I think the most important thing is you know, you have to
There
become good at things that you don't really like doing.
Right.
You know, so I don't like doing my accounting, but I have to do it because you know because you have to do it. So that's a huge thing. And then just being able to you know, adjust and adapt on a daily basis. I mean, you know, you could play the same team twice in the season, and you're going to have two totally different outcomes. And you have to be, they're going to make adjustments on you, and you're going to have to make those adjustments on them. And those are things in everyday life. You know, you get up, you go to work, you're going to have different outcomes every day, especially in you know, doing what I do. So yeah, absolutely. You know, these guys, I learned a lot, and then just being able to take out from the game of basketball and apply it to my everyday life has just been, you know, it's been great.
Coachable.
Yeah.
He was
very coachable.
He was a coachable kid.
Right.
There are a lot of players that
are
not coachable, but Lenny was a coachable kid, and that's why Lenny had, and we've said it, Lenny had the best big game in the biggest game of Ansonia basketball history.
Right.
Without a doubt.
No doubt.
Without a doubt. I mean, Willie McFarland, better player overall, but nobody had a better big game than he did. Because we talk about Willie McFarland now, you know, Willie McFarland was recruited by Seton Hall, Holy Cross, and UConn, and their coaches. Bill Raftery was the coach at Seton Hall.
Right.
Jack Donahue was the coach of Holy Cross. Jack Donahue was former Lou Alcindor's high school coach. And then there was D. Rose there. But D. Rose's assistant was Jimmy Valvano.
Wow.
And Willie McFarland averaged 30 points 2 straight years, no 3-point shot. And he used to shoot 18 shots some games. We used to get mad at him.
Right.
That's not enough shots, kid. 18 shots. Right?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny you bring up the 18 shots. One of the things that coaches do, which I think is great, is they encourage their players to take about 200 shots a day on their own. Is that something you both encourage to your players, like take as many shots a day as you can, stuff like that? You know, when I was at Derby, I had Joe Borzelli, and he was very big on, you know, doing that, stuff like that, that you needed to, and this is before the season began. He said you should be out there every day taking 200 shots. How key is it for these players in their off season to you know, improve their game on things like that?
It's key. And we had kids that did improve their game. I mean, we had kids that barely made the team as sophomores and were stars when they were seniors. Mm-hmm. And I can name one, Ronnie McFarland, Willie's brother, Hawk. We almost cut him in his sophomore year. He was kind of a porky kid, and he couldn't get up and down the floor at all, and things like that. And then I told my assistant at the time was Sean Supp, and I said to Sean, "You can't cut him. That's Willie's brother." Then the kid comes back his junior year. He had grown and he slimmed down, and he played much better. Then his senior year, he was outstanding. That can't happen unless the kid's playing. And that's why Eddie believes, like I do, that kids should play more than one sport. I mean, you may get a football kid that's not very good as a sophomore. As a senior, the kid could be great.
As a coach, I mean, you want to win, that's obvious, but does that give you more satisfaction to see a kid like you just mentioned who wasn't very good his sophomore year and then his senior year, he's one of your best players? I mean, is that more rewarding to you that you helped develop these kids into better players?
I think so.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, he was raw.
Right.
He was real raw.
I didn't start my freshman year. I came off the bench. I got a lot of time, but I didn't. I didn't start.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Coach Sienkiewicz, he was like, look, he goes, I want to give the starting spot to this guy. He goes, you're going to get a lot of playing time, I promise you. He goes, but I just,
were you disappointed or it didn't matter?
No, because I was a sponge. So, I mean, anything that, that they said goes, and I was very okay with it. And the time that I did get in, you want to make the most use of it. And
yeah.
You know what was a nice thing, too? His mom and dad, they were a non-factor as far as getting on a coach or anything like that. They were terrific.
Right.
And that's why he's turned out to be such a good kid, too.
Thank you.
Yeah, his father used to tape the games for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
We have almost a whole season of the it was my sophomore year, so it was the 92-93 season, and it was great because technology back then. I mean, my dad had a camcorder. He went and he actually had the time to do it. By the time I was a junior and a senior, I think my dad was working the night shift, so he wasn't able to get to the games. But we would sit down and as a team and we would study film in high school.
Which is very key. I mean, nowadays they make it so easy to study film, but back then, I mean, you had to have
and it was one of those things where and my dad was like, "Yep, he's going to go do the games," and it was important, and we watched it, and we got to we got beat by E.O. Smith
Semis.
But then and it just really set up what I thought was a great team, and I love that team just as much as I love the 94-95, but the 93-94 team, his last year, was a beast of a team, and getting her 8 games, that was a crushing blow to myself, to the team, and but I go down and then Phil comes in. So when do you get a chance to you get a guy that's 6'7", he goes down and you replace him with another guy that's 6'8" in high school.
It doesn't happen.
It's crazy.
No, it doesn't. And because you were asking about the transition, so after that team gets beat, I get appointed principal at Willow School.
Right.
So now here I go again. Now what do I do? Because Tom was asking whether there was pressure. The board was very good. They did not pressure me to give up the coaching job.
Oh, really?
Yep. But I had a young family. I had a daughter and a son who were young, and I knew that the only way I could do that would be to practice at night.
And you wouldn't see your family.
Yes, that's right. They'd be in bed. Yeah. So I mean, it killed me to give up that team now.
Right.
Especially the team that goes to the semis. We go to the semis. Lenny's not there. Phil Mrazek has mono. Chris Zura, who was a 6'4" shooting small forward, twists his ankle badly in the game before, just about could walk. Tim Lynch was involved in an altercation at the end of the game. He was our starting point guard. He got suspended for that game. Geez. So I'm technically playing the JV team.
Jody and the JVs.
Jody and the JVs against E.O. Smith. And the ironic thing, Timmy Lynch goes on to be a successful coach at Pomperog.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
He lost to E.O. Smith his last game. So he could never beat E.O. Smith. And he was so bad because they had the big kid that went to Fairfield, his brother, Olander.
Yeah.
Because there was the Olander that played for UConn, but the older Olander played for Fairfield University. And he was on the team that Tim's Pomperog team got beat by. So poor Tim.
I'm gonna throw Tim a positive thing. I loved playing. Him as a point guard. He 6'4", and he was so tenacious, and he just, it was one of those. Here was Timmy's personality on the court. He would, if he threw a pass to you on a break, and he messed it up and he threw a bad pass, he would take it on himself, and you kind of start to see him kind of like implode on himself. If he threw a good pass and say like I dropped the ball, which I tried not to, especially with him, he would take it out on himself, and you just didn't want to see that. But he was a leader. Him and Jody, being the co-captains of that team, and the leadership and the confidence, and we got to a point where. Through his, keep dinging us with, playing big, we got to the point where we were like, well, no, we are playing big, and we had that confidence, and we put the pressure on the other team. So we went on a run where, I remember guys coming like as a freshman. Guys on the team would be like, scared to play the Waterbury schools because some guys would talk trash, or they had some great leapers you might get dunked on. So, but we turned the tables, and I don't know. After I left senior year, I could have sworn I thought that it might have been like a six game winning streak against Willoughby. We started my junior year, we won both games.
Right.
My senior year, we won both games, and I want to say that you guys beat them twice.
We did.
Yeah. After.
And what a lot of people don't realize is, if you take football, a lot of those schools are not very good in football. But basketball, they were powerhouses.
Oh, absolutely.
They were well coached.
That's where the competition was.
A lot of talent. You're talking about a lot of inner city kids and stuff like that. So it's not easy to coach in a league like that. And Ansonia has a ton of talent, a lot of athletes. But just because you have a lot of athletes doesn't necessarily mean you have a lot of many basketball players. You still have to develop them. So you said a 6-game winning streak on Willoughby. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
that's a credit to the work that everybody put in.
Yeah, and like I said, we turned the tables on them, and now I think we just had the mentality where like now you have to try to beat us, and we're going to be the ones that are going to we weren't a trash talking team, but we would any opportunity to try to dunk, we would, and that played out very well. I had that game up against Willoughby, and I had better games on the road than at home, but maybe because of the sand on the court of the gym, which I love that gym because the fans there were great. But my junior season, just a couple games before I got hurt, pump fake my guy that's guarding me, Tavares Anderson, go down, throw down a dunk. Timmy hooks me up with a last second, buzzer beating shot, and I was really kind of like coming to my own. So again, it was very crushing when I got hurt, but
And everything these gentlemen have just discussed, they've given you a sample. We're going to talk all about that in part 2 of this segment. Lenny almost doesn't finish his senior year, and this championship almost doesn't happen. We're going to go over that all on part 2 of Hometown Heroes. For part 1 of Hometown Heroes, I'm Mike Kenichi saying good night, everyone.